No more Wolfie at the back. No more Chaplin in attack. But we still have Super Kieran McKenna. Does he still know just exactly what we need? This is Blue Monday. Struggled through that intro just as much as we struggled through the transfer window, I think. But this is the Blue Monday podcast covering Ipswich Town up or down since 2015. My name is Mikey Penty-Smith, and joining me for this international break flagship show are our Sam Parkin and Nikki Forster duo. It's Seb Brown and Rich Woodward. How are you both? Have you enjoyed a weekend off from ITFC nonsense?
No, I've painted a shed, I've painted a bathroom, and I'm ridiculously bored. So no, please return the football. I'm trying to think who's Nikki Forster and who's the aging but proven striker, and who's the one that's not really going to fulfil his potential.
I mean, there's an offensive reason why I'm Sam Parkin, I would suggest, and
I didn't want to mention it. But
in 2025, that's massively unacceptable.
You've picked the very popular and impressive broadcaster there, Rich, for yourself.
I'll take it. I thought he was massively underrated. I remember being excited when that signing happened, but we've not been called that before, have we? I think we've been more offensive names than that, Seb and I. But no, ITFC women. We'll talk more about them later on. They were a distraction from the bleakness that is in the international break. I really hate it when you get football back for a month. I know we haven't had the best of Augusts, and do we need to get a kind of a disclaimer out there nice and early, Mikey, that we're not going to talk too much about August, so we're looking to the future, folks. We're bringing everyone together like Mark Ashton talked about on Friday night. But yeah, not the greatest of WSL2 debuts for ITFC women. So I was watching that one on Saturday, but man, the weekend drags when there's no football, no proper football, so no men's football. So
football. Come on, you two. You two really hate the international football.
I hate it.
There's all these amazing stories going on around the world, and we all love the international football in the summer months. You've just got to put up with these, and obviously, I enjoy the international breaks because I get a weekend off.
Okay, well then there you go. But blooming England too.
Motives. Yeah, that wasn't great, but Serbia away could be an absolute humdinger in midweek. We've got that to look forward to, haven't we? Tonight, we're mostly going to talk about the Kieran McKenna and Mark Ashton interview with Matt Holland last week. But I think, first of all, now the dust has settled and we've all calmed down a little while after that we're going to call it turbulent transfer window. I think it's time now for us to take stock, Seb, and maybe reflect on who has moved on, because so many of our favourites from the last few years have moved on. Obviously, Liam Delap was one of the highlights of the Premier League season, but just going to run through some names now, and there's so much love that we have for these guys: Mas Luongo, Axel Tuanzebe, Cameron Burgess, Sam Morsey, Nathan Broadhead, Amari Hutchinson, Luke Wolfenden, Connor Chaplin. So many big names there. How are you with it all, Seb? Because I'm not going to pretend that I'm particularly happy about how we've ended this transfer window.
I think it's traumatic for us all, because they've given us an amazing 2.5, 3 years. Most of them, that team. Dave can sit here and reel off the 81 team. We can all sit here and reel off the 2000 team, and people in 20, 30, 40 years time will sit and reel off the 2022 to 2024 team. They've given us incredible memories. I didn't think as many of them would be moving on. I'll be honest. McKenna purposely started a team against West Ham on the last day of the season and said we wanted to focus on the ones who will be here next season. And I think I can't think of that lineup off the top of my head, but half, 2/3 have probably now all left the building, haven't they? And yeah, it's sad. And like you say, not overly happy with it. I have no doubt we have brought in better technical, better quality players. It's the intangibles for me. It's the band of brothers spirit. It sounds cheesy, running to adversity. It's all that kind of stuff that's you can't measure on a sofa score or a foot mob kind of spreadsheet and database. It's the things we saw for 2.5 years, the memories these players gave us for 2.5 years, and they are, just heroes to us all. And as I said, I expected probably maybe half of the names you just reeled off to leave. I think we're all shocked at the likes of Sam Morsey, I guess Burgess and Tuanzebe. The longer their contract situation went on, it became clear that they weren't going to stick around. But Wolfenden, Chaplin, Morsey, there's some big characters there that have left the building. And yeah, it's sad. I think it's modern football, if we're honest. Most of these clubs that we're aspiring to be, like your Brentfords, your Brightons, they do have this turnover of players each summer. We have to get used to it. It's modern football, but it hurts because of the legends that they all are and what they've given us for the last 2 and a bit seasons. And it's good that we'll get to see some of them back at Portman Road to give them a proper farewell. It feels like a lot of left under the radar. Luongo got his send-off on the last day of the season that was excellent. All 4 stands rising to applaud him, etc. But I'm looking forward to seeing the likes of Burgess coming back and Wolfenden, and then we can give them a proper send-off to recognise the heroes that they are.
And Rich, it's really important in football not to be short-termist when you're running a football club, and you have to look to the future and you have to be planning ahead and making moves slightly ahead of where you are at the time. But do you think we've maybe gone a little bit too long-term? Because we do need to get promoted this season, and we've lost a lot of players who are proven in this division and might have given us a really good chance of getting out of it.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Mikey. You're right. And Seb's talks about the kind of the general corporate IQ, whatever you want to call it, of be that McKenna style of play or the Ashton kind of culture. And we'll talk more about the interview, and because obviously that came up with both Ashton and McKenna on Friday night. But I also think there's a kind of other mantras out there, which is nothing gets better by staying the same. And we've got some players that do a job at championship level, but we found that at top flight level we're just not quite there, and that's quite sad, but it's inevitable. And we've talked about the rapid progression through the divisions. Again, I'll quote Ashton, spoiler alert for our chat about the interview, talks about time. It's not a luxury that the club has actually had to be able to take stock and to do things incrementally. It's been a big bang kind of implementation, as it were, through 2 divisions really swiftly. And I think in hindsight, we probably were too successful too soon. And inevitably, these decisions, Mikey, these difficult decisions come at you because of success. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword. We either want the success, but some of the band of brothers that have done us so well can't come along for the ride, or we're quite happy sticking with that group of players and accept that maybe there's a ceiling there. And we know our ownership are ambitious. I think deep down, I know we talked about it here. The Premier League was not fun. There were some days, McKenna talked about days here and there, and certainly for the younger generation of supporters, Spurs away, the Chelsea at home, even the Man United draw, there's some good moments in there. But that's where we aspire to be. We aspire to be competitive at the top flight. And so I'm a little bit more of the pragmatic evolution is needed. But I guess to your point, it's felt a little bit like a revolution. And again, spoiler alert for the chat about the interview, but I think even McKenna acknowledged more outs than perhaps they predicted or forecasted at the start of the summer. But yeah, it's all about getting back to the top flight, really, isn't it? We can't forget that. So there you go. There's a long, rambly answer for you.
No, but a nice one, Rich. And yeah, before we look forward, we probably should reflect in a nice way. We've lost these players that we really care about, but a lot of them have, in fact, pretty much all of them, quite happy for where they've gone on to. Sam Morsey moving to Kuwait, an amazing opportunity for him financially and maybe culturally as well to go out there and experience life over there. Obviously, a lot of his career has been spent in the lower leagues in English football. Luongo getting another season being first choice in the Championship, or the opportunity to be first choice in the Championship is good for him. Luke Wolfenden getting his first move, because that's a big thing, isn't it? He probably wasn't ever going to stay at Ipswich forever, and there was times in the past where he would have probably happily have moved on, but he decided that maybe when Dara O'Shea came in and then Greaves came in, and it became quite clear that he was going to be second fiddle. Fair play to him that he's wanted to get out and try and make his mark somewhere else and test himself at a different club, and a really good football club as well. And it's a nice story as well. Connor Chaplin, we'd rather he stayed. And I think Kieran McKenna would have rather he stayed, because he was still starting a match against Derby the other week, but he's gone back to Portsmouth, and maybe he wouldn't have left if a Portsmouth move wasn't on the table, Seb. So, yeah, go on, name that immortalised team, Seb. And
well, I guess the goalkeeper fluctuates depending on the season, but Flagship, Tuanzebe / Clark, Wolfenden, Burgess, Davis, Morsey and Luongo, Wes Burns, Connor Chaplin, Nathan Broadhead and George Hurst up front. It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And it was brilliant, the fact that it was only minor additions in the summer of 2023. Hutchinson kind of joined up, Tuanzebe joined up, and the roller coaster continued. And some of the memories they've given us, if we think back to the League One season, some huge away days, Derby away, Bolton away, that crazy, the symmetry of the two seasons as well. The Barnsley postponement, because Greg Lee definitely got a call up, meaning it was a 3-game week. It was Barnsley in the middle of, obviously, wasn't it, Peterborough on the Saturday, and then Exeter rounding off at home. And then last year, Coventry are in the FA Cup semi-final, so the game gets shifted, and obviously it's Hull away, the 3-3 draw, which was just an epic football match. Coventry away, the night that none of us will ever forget, and then Huddersfield, wasn't it, at home on the final day of the season. So a lot of symmetry, a lot of things kind of the same year on year. But I guess we do all have to move on, welcome the new players, and we'll see if we can make some new memories with the new players, I guess, and the new team and the new squad.
And Rich, we often quote The Office on this show, but there's a nice quote in The American Office where I can't remember the character's name, but he says, the problem with the good old days is nobody ever tells you when you're in them.
Yes,
but I don't think that applies, because
Andy
I actually
Bernard.
think we did know that we were in the good old days, didn't we? But the problem was we just didn't know that these characters that we cared so much about were about to move on altogether in one go, it felt.
Yeah. And we've talked about the kind of, I think I said it, kind of ripping the bandage off in one go is, and this is human nature. We've got people in the chat talking about it. We've seen it week on week. We've seen it on social media in our Telegram group as well, that as human beings, change is scary. We cannot foresee. We're going to talk about September in a minute, what lies ahead. And there is familiarity, there's safety, there is comfortability in the success of the past with this group of players, and they're no longer here. And we've got to get used to Hazel Matasiwa. We welcome back Jens Kayusta. We've got Marcelino Nunez. We've got, Ageli. We've got, all these new guys coming in. Azon, we're going to take some time for us to get used to them. But as McKenna talks about, I'm kind of spoiling all of my good points about the interview, but he talks about these shared experiences. Some of them kind of negative or just uncomfortable, but we get through them and then we have that success again. But it's natural that we feel this way, Mikey, and because we've had the kind of context of so much negativity that preceded it, it felt all the more amazing. We just, as I said, went through at breakneck speed back up to the Premier League from League One. You rewind 4 years, 5 years. I don't think any of us could have predicted that. I think that's been part of the journey, but journeys have to come to an end. And I think, to go back to my previous point, the previous question, what would have been really bad is if we just let this team peter out. Their success becomes, a thing like the 81 team and the teams, the George Burley. There's kind of an aura around the club of historic success. And if you kind of wallow in that for too long, you kind of take your eyes off the ball and you start to settle, and safety is not ambition. So we can be both two things at the same time. We can be sad and grateful, I guess, for the team that did so well for us before, and we can be optimistic and ambitious about what's to come. Both of those are very good places to be for the football club, and for that we need to be really grateful. It's a nice problem that we have, but it's bittersweet, of course.
Yeah, there is some good news though. Bluey has given us a
the Bluey, do we think?
£4.99 super sticker. Thank you very much for that, Bluey. Right, let's move on then to this interview with Ashton and McKenna with club legend Matt Holland. Feels like a long time ago, doesn't it, that Marcus Evans was doing that interview. That wasn't the Blue Monday era though, wasn't it? I seem to remember Ben doing a video afterwards, and there was the accusation that he was reading off a chart behind the interviewer's head. None of that this time, because we have the interviewer Matt Holland in vision. Why wouldn't you? The venue was the Premier League TV studio, perhaps a bit of a white elephant at the moment in the corner of the Churchman stand. Let's talk about Mark Ashton first up, Rich, as maybe slightly more of a talking point amongst the fans. He's dividing opinion a little bit at the moment, and maybe he always has. He's taken a little bit of flack for how everything panned out in that transfer window. But what are your main takeaways? What do you think are the most important discussion points from Mark Ashton's section of the interview, Rich?
I guess the key thing, and I'm very corporate during the week, so this kind of stuff is interesting to me, but he's always really consistent. And I know that kind of winds people up. There's a few kind of cliches and buzzwords and phrases, but he's always really consistent with that messaging. You're going to chip one in, Mikey. We're going to talk about oxygen.
I was taking in some oxygen.
Didn't talk about that, or access or egress. So to be fair to him, so he's moved them forward, but the best version of ourselves and all that kind of stuff, relentless, and I get that people are quite cynical about that, but actually, he's in a really important focal point at the top of the kind of Portman Road, Ipswich Town organisation, and doing the right things when no one's looking. It sounds a little bit trite, but actually it's that detail that permeates everything. And he kind of paid tribute to McKenna and his staff working all hours. He's clearly worked all hours and described the transfer window as the most difficult that he's ever experienced, and no surprises there really. But probably the biggest headline when it came to Mark Ashton, Mikey, is the fact that he didn't do most of the talking. We're used to the kind of dominance. If it was a pie chart on each of those great interviews that Matty Holland has done now, it was probably 70% the first time, 60% the time after. Are we on to number 3 maybe? I would argue it's probably 40-60 in favour of McKenna now. So Ashton clearly, and I think we can read into that positive things, that McKenna is a focal point, and has got things to say, and clearly is aligned there. And actually, probably, Mikey, that was the biggest thing I took away from Ashton's side of it, interestingly, is that he just let McKenna take front and center, whether it was talking about the training ground, bedding in new players, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are my thoughts on what Ashton.
Do you think that was how it went naturally, Rich, or do you think that there was a conscious decision to let McKenna do the talking, just to show everyone that he is the guy in charge?
I would guess that it was planned that way. It'd be nice if it was organic, but also, again, people are cynical about this, and you're right to call attention to the Marcus Evans interview, because Ben and I both at the time felt that was very manufactured and staged and very safe. And of course, not all of Matt Holland's great questions were answered as specifically as maybe we would have liked. But I think it's right that McKenna takes centre stage, and maybe it demonstrates some of Mark Ashton's kind of learning from the likes of Mike O'Leary, who I think all of us, we didn't really hear too much from Mike O'Leary, but when we did, it was like, yeah, he's really he's sound, he's wise, he's kind of good, and sometimes less is more. Actually, as a senior leader, you let the team lead the way. So, I'm properly wallowing in banal business cliches tonight, but I think that was planned, Mikey, and I quite liked it, actually. I think it was good.
Seb, did you enjoy the interview? It was quite uplifting, wasn't it? In many ways, like seeing Ashton maybe a little bit beaten up by that transfer window, but still so positive and bullish about the future.
Yeah, it was. I could listen to McKenna talk for hours on end. I think we all could, couldn't we? The level of detail he gives, the answers he gives, they just do make you feel supremely confident. And I thought interesting that both of them referred to time a lot over the interview. The time that we ran out of time in the Premier League, and had we had more time, things might be slightly different. And on multiple occasions, there were references to it's going to take time for this new squad they didn't use the term gel, but we know that's what they're saying, to get it together and to try and link things up. And yeah, I just when you do this, I mean, it's club controlled narrative, it's club controlled media. We have to remember that, but it does, at the end of it, it does make you feel a little bit like, yeah, you know what, we're going to be absolutely fine because we've got the brightest young managerial talent outside the Premier League who is still at this club, who is excited. I mean, I like seeing the fact he was more relaxed. You know, we've seen him downbeat. I mean, to be fair, he's had what, 2 league wins in since this calendar year, or no, Chelsea was just before, wasn't it? So 2 league wins since New Year's Eve, whatever it's been. So the vast majority of pre and post press conferences, he has looked a little bit, you know, under strain and under pressure. So I really like the joke he made about the club's best ever midfield captain. That was great to see that kind of side from him that we don't necessarily always see, and to see him look more relaxed and to see him look enthused and excited about what he's got to work with now, it does leave you feeling supremely confident that, yeah, it's been a slow start. Yeah, we've got, 11 new arrivals, 14 departures, huge churn. But as long as that guy is in the dugout, we'll be absolutely fine. And that's kind of the key takeaway from it. And the club aren't stupid. They'll know they'll put this out and it'll re-engage the fan base, and we'll all feel slightly happier and talk about it on podcasts like this. And, you know, everyone feels in a slightly better place to make up for what has been a slow start up to the season. But you just have to listen to the things he says, the level of detail, and it's phenomenal. And it does make you feel good, doesn't it?
And Rich, obviously things didn't all go, not everything went to plan in that transfer window, and maybe people on the outside might be suggesting that, McKenna can't be happy with the way things are, but the chemistry and the relationship still looked strong, didn't it? Certainly didn't look like McKenna was disappointed with Ashton, and he was giving a lot of the reasons for why things have happened the way that they have as well.
Yeah, and that's as it should be. You want the manager to be bought into the strategy, and I don't know whether it was McKenna or Ashton who kind of said, you know, I think Matt Holland quoted the numbers, 14 out, 11 in. Was that always the plan? And I think it was McKenna who said, no, that was way beyond what we could have predicted or what we wanted or forecasted. But McKenna was really, I thought, really honest about, he kind of used the phrase respecting pathways. And, you know, we've paid tributes to the double promotion team. And in some ways, it feels like McKenna was very much brought into respecting that for the players too. And interesting that certain players got mentioned by name and some didn't, but it sounded like the Chaplin situation, for example, that you've already referred to.
Sorry, who were the ones that were mentioned and who weren't, just to jog people's memory, or if anyone
the list of people who were not mentioned is longer than the ones who were, but okay. At least when it came to trading, and you know, there was some nod towards the Newcastle situation in respect of the departures of the likes of Delap, but more Amari, and it's like we're not the only, Newcastle are not the only ones who've struggled in that. But it was interesting that Broadhead was mentioned a few times in kind of positive terms. Wolfie, there was kind of a, you know, he mentioned pretty early on in the summer that he wanted to leave. That came up. Chaplin, it sounded like there was quite a respectful situation there. I think McKenna said he's the best player, the best person that he's had the honour of working with. They had man-to-man, honest conversations throughout the whole summer. But McKenna talked about doing right by these guys, and it sounded like the opportunity, you know, Chaplin's agent has done some great work there behind the scenes. It sounded like the only, to your point, Mikey, the only place where Chaplin was going to go was Portsmouth, and that got done. But McKenna was really keen to stress that there's a break in that loan, and it's all about getting minutes into Chaplin. He's at a key point in his career, needs to play games, need to score goals. You know, McKenna's saying that, and that might not be the end of his story at Ipswich Town. So that was great to hear, that the insight, the honesty about the conversations that were being had. You know, you've mentioned the kind of more the, you know, there was some paying tribute to great characters, great men, great friends. I think even Ashton said, but you know, Leaf was kind of mentioned too. There was conversation about evolving the leadership group, which has been really critical. We always focus on Morsey, but McKenna talked about Don Ball, didn't he? And Janoy Danassian, and when he came in, the kind of League One leadership group, and how that's evolved quite quickly, and how, you know, that's really important part of the next stage for this team. You've got Leaf, who I think was purposely put forward for the Southampton post-match, and talked about how he needs to develop his leadership style. And, you know, to Seb's point about McKenna's astuteness, he was talking about developing that. We talked about it earlier in the season here on the podcast, when big leaders, big characters, big personalities in the dressing room move out, there is an opportunity for someone to fill that gap. And it sounded like McKenna was really excited about the opportunity to find the next Sam Morsey. You know, he talked about Dara O'Shea being a different character, but he sounded really enthused about trying to bring the best out of, I don't know, someone like Leif Davis, perhaps, you know, Jacob Greaves, who knows? So that was really exciting to kind of talk about individuals and their journeys.
Like the hairy-assed old professionals, they start out as young players as well, don't they? So Leif Davis and Jacob Greaves and players like that, they were young when they came in, but they're now a bit more experienced, and yeah, it's going to be their time to step up and become a part of that leadership group. And yeah, judging by the first four games of the season, we do need some leadership in the team. Simon Harris picks out some of the positives here, Seb, which Mark Ashton was pretty quick to talk about at the start. So many positives: the training ground, new squad, the academy, and the ladies. It's easy to sort of put that to one side, isn't it? Because we've lost a few of our favourite players and we haven't won a game, but things are pretty rosy still at the football club, aren't they?
Very much so. Streaky just said it a minute ago in the chat. I think you put it up on the screen, didn't you? Saying the club is in a wonderful place. You know, we're a year one parachute club. Our squad value is probably 3-4 times what it was last time we started off competing at a championship kind of campaign. And I thought it was really interesting. A couple of times, McKenna, maybe more than a couple of times, he kept saying, you know, at the end of the window, you've got to have players who want to be here. I thought that was quite interesting, the way he kept referring to that 2 or 3 times throughout the interview. Yes, it's about letting these players have the respect they deserve, and maybe in 1 or 2 cases they can kind of choose their own next steps, maybe to the detriment of the club in terms of getting fees in, etc. for Morsey. But clearly he wants a squad that really wants to be here. He doesn't want any kind of not dissenting characters, but if players aren't playing, you know, we know they'll become very unhappy very quickly. So I thought that was interesting to mention a few times. And yeah, I mean, the academy is now Category 1. The ITFC women have made their debut at WSL 2 level this weekend, yesterday. So everything is so positive. If we'd have won Preston and Derby or something, we'd all be sitting here, you know, really enthused about what's gone on. It's just the fact we haven't won a game yet, and it's been so long since we had a kind of a successful run of winning games, which is why maybe there's a bit of a kind of a dampener. But the club is in a phenomenal place, let's be honest.
Yeah, Romeo says a win on Friday and we're back on track. We've just lost the knack of winning matches. All good things will flow from success on the pitch. I know they haven't had a great start to the season, Sheffield United, Rich, but we're going to talk about those fixtures a little bit later on in the show. But to me, that looks like a good first fixture after the international break, like a Friday night under the lights. Should be a big atmosphere, a little bit of history of Sheffield United. Feels like it could be a really good reset.
Yeah, and we've got great history under the lights. McKenna mentioned Sarmiento, didn't he? We forgot to mention that in our ode to the double promotion team, the players who joined on a short-term basis and made all the difference. Big Kiefer as well. And yeah, there's always a sense of anticipation and a buzz around the town when it's dark, but the floodlights are on. You're walking down to Portman Road, so I'm excited about that. As you say, we'll talk more about that in a second. And you know, to continue the thread briefly, you know, Ashton talked about £70 million of transfer incomings through this summer, and you know, if someone had mentioned that figure to us a few years ago, we'd have laughed. You know, so
yeah. I think we're now the club that we used to be jealous of, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. We're the bad guys, as we keep saying. But yeah, I think there was lots to like there. Maybe, you know, McKenna was quite honest that there's still a lot of work to do. Seb talked about time. He's seen some bits, but there's more to come there. But you know, the other thing for those, you know, who have really bought into running towards adversity, the fact that sounds like Jason Schecterly is going to be back over to speaking to the new players. That's, you know, that's consistency. That's part of that, you know, the mantra that the club now subscribes to, that culture that, you know, Ashton is so integral in pulling together. That's important. And you know, we talked right at the start of this bit, Mikey, about change. You know, the 2 constants really, the pillars in this kind of new era of Ipswich Town are Mark Ashton and Kieran McKenna. They're the ever presence, and so it's great that we have these kind of conversations with Matty Holland every few months. I like how they're consistent. I like how we're hearing more from Kieran McKenna, and yeah, it's important to remember where we are. You know, one of the questions I think Matt Holland asked was, promotion's got to be the target, and Ashton kind of did a bit of a slopey shoulders. It's like, of course the short term aim is always promotion, but it's still building sustainably. We forget how much neglect the club had kind of suffered under Marcus Evans and those really difficult years. And we all want success, but it's good to know that there are people who've kind of got they're playing chess rather than checkers. I think that's a Training Day quote.
I was going to say you're quoting Training Day.
Yeah, but the point persists. I think that's, we've got people who've got an eye on the future. If I was, Matty Holland is not going to ask this question, but if it was a Blue Monday interview, the question really is how bad or how significant would be not getting promoted this season? That's probably the question, but you obviously don't want to go there on enough. So that's the only kind of one criticism I would have, but you were never going to get that kind of conversation. And it's a really brutal question to ask. So
yeah, and it's an impossible one to answer at this stage as well, isn't it?
But I think maybe one to throw out to the chat, like, do you feel more confident, more positive as a result of watching that interview or not? I think I do. I think it sounds like both you guys do as well. So I guess let us know if we're in the minority or not, because sometimes it's just good to hear from these guys, isn't it? Yeah. But what they were saying, I think is just as important.
The overriding thing for me was just they look so much more relaxed now they've got that transfer window out of the way, and their body language suggests that they're happy with how things ended. Obviously, with a couple of emotional things that happened there with Chaplin and Wolfender moving on the last day, but I think they're pretty happy with the way things turned out. And it's just a shame that we had 4 games during that transfer window. It's quite frustrating. However, it's not like any of the teams that we were expecting to be challenging for automatic promotion have started particularly well either, right, Seb? So if you're going to have a bad start, it might as well be this season.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Leicester have probably done the started the strongest of the 3 that have come down and the rumoured favourites. Birmingham obviously hit a bit of a buffer last time out, losing to whoever, I can't remember who it was. But yeah, the trouble is in this league, as we know, you can't afford to give teams too much of a head start. We go back to our promotion season; it was absolutely I sound like Mark Ashton. Absolutely relentless, wasn't it? With sides just winning week in, week out, and as we found in that Paul Cook 2021-22 season. If you do start slowly, it's almost impossible to claw back on the top 6 or the top 2. So yeah, it's fallen favourably, the fact that other clubs have had similar issues in terms of players going on strike and uncertainty around squads and late transfer business, both in and out. Now it's all done. Hopefully we can get it all put to bed relatively quickly. McKenna's now got, they're not back till Wednesday, are they? He said in the interview. So he's got a few days with the players that haven't gone away. It says there was a behind closed doors friendly last week, and then he's going to have two days of proper training before the Friday night game against Sheffield United, and hopefully that's when we will start to see the fruits of his labour. And McKenna can do what he does. We want him to be able to develop these players. It's the thing he is absolutely best at. It's lovely hearing from him in a studio being answered questions by Matt Holland, but we know his absolute forte is developing players on that training pitch, coming up with patterns of play. And I honestly believe we will start to see the fruits of that in the next couple of weeks. We've just got to be a little bit more patient, I think.
Excellent. And Rich, just overall, your emotions from it, just before we move on.
Yeah, as I said, I think positivity, cautious positivity perhaps, and good to hear honest answers, maybe not the full answer, but honest answers nevertheless, acknowledgement. And as I say, not so long ago, we would never hear anything from anyone near the top of the football club about what the ambition was, what the strategy was, being accepting that the situation wasn't great. There was no pretending that we'd had a great start or anything like that. You know, there was at least some honesty. I know people can get really cynical.
Gaslighting, was there?
No, I don't think so. You know, and it's in-house interview. You're not going to get the kind of hard-hitting questions that I would like to ask. Maybe some of us would want to ask. But Matty Holland is a nice kind of, he's on the inside. He's a board of directors, isn't he? But just having him there as well, I think, is really good. And yeah, I like the fact that we do these things, and certainly after a period of a lot of change, good just to remind ourselves where we've been and the opportunity to be able to move forward as well.
Excellent. And we'll move this podcast forward after we hear from our sponsors.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Thank you very much, Atwells, for your continued support on Blue Monday and the Flagship show. We have a shirt giveaway ongoing. We're edging closer towards having 6,000 YouTube subscribers. Check the posts out on our socials. There it is. Help us reach our 6,000 YouTube subscriber target before the Sheffield United match, and you might win a shirt. I know my sister's entered about 8 times on behalf of my niece.
Good.
Probably not going to win because of who she's related to, but yeah, you've got to be in it to win it, haven't you, guys? Seb, I'm gonna throw these plugs over to you. Can you remember what shows we have coming up this week, top tier and on the main platform?
Right. So there will be
we're gonna grade you here, Seb.
There'll be the tactical analysis show tomorrow. Is it after the scoreline? That'll be out tomorrow.
Beyond the scoreline.
Beyond the scoreline. Sorry, that'll be out for top tier members tomorrow. There is a Blue Monday rewind this week for top tier members, but I don't know when that's going out. I'm going to guess Tuesday.
Wednesday, probably.
Wednesday, Rich's mouth in Wednesday. Pre-match, I know that one for sure. 8 p.m. live, back to our live slot for the Sheffield United discussion 24 hours before the match. Will there be a new show? I'm guessing not on Wednesday if Blue Monday Rewind is out. So no new show, pre-match live, and then obviously the Flagship next week with Ben, Dave, and Joe back to discuss Sheffield United.
He's missing one, Mike. He's
missing one. The Friday.
Oh, sorry. Henry and George. Yeah, sorry. Henry and George doing their alternative look at the pre-match. That'll be out Friday morning, like normal, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the weekend preview on match day this time, ahead of
the best
Sheffield
of the 2
United
pre-match shows.
There's not going to be a live match reaction for that one. That's going to be a midweek thing this season, isn't it, Rich?
Yep. And plenty of blogs throughout the week too on top tier. And we're not going to labour the point too much. It is early days for that one, which is why we're talking a lot about it. But just good variety of content over there. And the blogs is great. We've got lots of guest contributors that have got involved in that. So those appear throughout the week too. So there's a join button on our YouTube channel. It's a $5, but everything is ad free. And as much stuff as we can chuck at you, we will, to try and make it feel like there's Blue Monday content coming out your ears almost daily at the moment.
Lovely. And Rich, it's been a pretty quiet weekend on the football front, but as you mentioned earlier, ITFC women made their WSL2 bow away at Southampton. A big occasion for the club, but not one that went particularly well for the team.
No, not a huge shock. Southampton established at tier 2 level. There's so many analogies to the men's game and the promotion up to the Premier League, the haves and the have-nots. You know, we're talking the difference in the women's game is that these teams have been full-time, fully pro, I would imagine, for 3 years. And that's something that we are hopefully evolving towards. But it makes a big difference, big pitch. But they've got that physical stature, and so just really exploited us at set pieces. I think that'll be the big disappointment for Joe Sheehan and the team, is that they didn't really carve us open. I guess they didn't need to in open play. Obviously, the first goal was a good move and if emphatically finished by Atlanta Primus, Mikey, daughter of Lynn Voy. You can still find him. But it was. The goals were avoidable. Goals 3.
Sorry, was that the daughter of Lynn Voy Primus?
Yeah,
plays for Southampton.
Yeah, but yeah, we talk. Oh yeah, don't cross the streams. Don't cross the streams. So yeah, she finished emphatically to open the scoring. But there were 3 goals there where I think we could do better. And Joe Sheehan mentioned it in his post match. So lots of hard work there. But again, similar to the chat of time, this is something that the women's team don't have too much of, and the games come thick and fast for them too. So next weekend, first game at Colchester, they face Nottingham Forest, and a fellow newly promoted side. I believe they were losing. Someone might need to give me the final score. They're at least losing at half time today. So that, this is a team that we can get at. Sheffield United also lost big at the weekend. So the key for ITFC women is just be the right side of the line. There's one relegation spot. be the right side of the line, and hopefully they grow and evolve into the season, because there's enough quality there. But, big opening day game, that one. And some disappointment there, but definitely some pride that we are at this level, and hopefully we can grow and improve.
Excellent. We've got a new top tier.
Oh, welcome, Michael.
Happened while we've been on air. Welcome, Michael Warner. I hope you enjoy what you see on top tier. And thank you for your continued support of the podcast. So, not a great weekend for Ipswich women. Seb, not a huge amount of international interest for Ipswich. Quite a few players in the Ireland squad. A Norwegian under-21 to talk about. And what else have I missed?
George Hurst got a few minutes, didn't he, for Scotland? He came off the bench towards the end of the game there. So he got a few minutes for them, playing quite a good result, 0-0 against, was it Denmark, wasn't it? So that's not a bad point away from home for the Scots. The Irish 5 all got minutes on the pitch. Was it O'Shea and Sammy Schmodic, I think, started? Schmodic has left the camp with an unspecified injury. We're not sure what it is yet. He's done a social media tweet, I think, hasn't he, saying gutted, hopefully not too serious. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. Typical, we get rid of a starting number 10 to go and play minutes and score goals. Then we potentially lose our starting number 10, but there we go. Such is life. Ogbene, Jack Taylor, and I'm missing one. Who's the other one? Casey McAteer all came off the bench as well, didn't they? So it's minutes for them, and I guess the second round of fixtures will begin tomorrow night for Scotland, Tuesday night for England and the Republic.
And Ogbene's done a little bit of media work, hasn't he? Have you seen the social media clip that's been doing the rounds, Rich, where he said that if he went back in time, he'd want to rupture his Achilles again because he's grown so much as a person. So it seems like a fantastic character, doesn't he?
Yeah, and someone who we've let leave the club. But I think, and it was also in part, Mikey, wasn't it, about his opportunity to do more in the community as well and give back? So just we knew probably before he did that what a lovely guy he was. A real credit to the club. Really key figure in the foundation. Was that came up in the interview. Now Chaplin, obviously a trustee of the foundation, he's obviously left, albeit temporarily. Same with Ogbene, but that feels like none of us would obviously want to go through what he's gone through in terms of the injury, the surgery, the rehab, the recovery. But to paint that in a positive light and to find the benefit out of it is a real commendation to his mindset as a human being and an example for all of us, I'm sure. So good on you, Chia, and good luck at Sheffield United. Won't be involved obviously on Friday night. So but after that, I think all of us would love to see him get minutes and goals and come back to us and be able to make an impact.
Absolutely. So winless in 4 so far. Let's talk about these 4 fixtures that are coming up before the next international break, which you two are probably already dreading, aren't you? But yeah, there they are. Only one of those teams in the top half, unless I'm mistaken. So 12 points, 9 points.
I think there's a good spread. I think Portsmouth are 9th, I think, Mike. I think they might be top half. Bristol City, I think, 6th, had a really good start. But I think it was Seb who said it. I think Sheffield United, I mean, it sounds like if Ruben Sellers loses that match on Friday, he might be out of a job already. And that's, again, there's so much of that interview with Ashton and McKenna that we talked about. Ashton mentioned, even last season, clubs were chopping and changing their manager. He didn't name names, but you can read into that. And we haven't gone down that. We stick by our principles. And blimey, if Sheffield United sack Sellers, I mean, we hope, frankly, we beat them to kick our season into gear. But that's the situation that faces Sheffield United there. And Blackburn away. Blackburn had a really good end to the last season, didn't they? Under Valerian Ismail. And I think it's 3 defeats out of 4, perhaps. I think they beat Hull away. Last time out, lost to Norwich at home. I'm looking forward to that with Mikey because I've never been to Ewood Park. I'm ticking that ground off. But those 2 games, I'll let Seb talk about the last 2. More contentious, I think, that one. You've got to be looking for 6 points, haven't we, really, in terms of the relative positions and hopefully us having, injecting some momentum into our season. Because once you get the sense that once we get wins under our belt, that McKenna runaway train effect might kick into gear, and that's what we need. But Friday under the lights, it's a big one, isn't it, for both teams?
Yeah, it definitely has a big game feeling about it, that one, Seb.
Massively so. We saw so many of those evenings last season. The promotion season, didn't we? Sunderland at home. Obviously the Sarmiento Southampton. Was it Rotherham 4-3, Bristol City 3-2?
Midweek game.
Yeah, there were so many games under the lights, which were just epic memories. And it's got that feel, like Rich said earlier, you get that buzz. The whole town will be kind of building up to it from sort of midday or so. And night games at Portman Road can be very, very special. They need a win desperately. Ruben Sellers needs a win absolutely before they ring Chris Wilder and get him to come back in again for a third time or whatever it'll be. So 2 clubs which really need a win, 2 clubs going head to head, 2 probably arguably of the top 4 favourites at the start of the season, I would suggest, to get promoted. And neither side has started well, but it does feel like it's going to be a really, really big game. And then, Blackburn away, apart from the Chaplin winner in sort of Easter time in the promotion season, not overly a happy hunting ground for us. I can't remember too many even points there. It seems... going back in the day, Richard Wright playing as an absolute wonder kid. Portsmouth at home will be difficult. Obviously beat them last time out 3-2, wasn't it, with a couple of goals from Ladapo, I think, in the League One promotion season. They've started well. I think they've won 2, drawn 2. I think they're unbeaten, aren't they? They've got Southampton this weekend, though, so a big derby for them this weekend. And then Bristol City have started well. I guess Liam Manning moved on, but Scott Twine has started the season well. They're currently in 6th, where they finished last season, and it was, that will be a difficult game as well. And presumably that'll be our first post-match reaction show, Mikey. We'll get to link up like the old days and can come on air straight after full time, hopefully to discuss 12 points out of 12 for the month of September. No, it's going to be difficult. We haven't won a lot of games. I don't think even the most blue-tinted spectacle wearers amongst us are going to sit here and suggest we're going to win all 4 on the bounce. But there is a good chance there to pick up points against sides that are kind of stuttering a little bit, and we've just got to make sure that we can take full advantage of it.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that, Seb, that's going to be our first live match reaction show. I did go to Bristol City a couple of years ago, but I think I took time off work to go. I can't see myself driving there and back, even though it's down south.
We need you, Mikey. You got to be on. We need you to host it.
Yeah,
worth mentioning.
Decision made.
I've forced you into it on live on air. Low-key highlight of the championship promotion season, by the way, Bristol City away, Brody scoring from the edge of the box, firm low, pinger into the corner, wasn't it? Dug in, maybe a little bit under the cosh, probably could have scored a couple.
Didn't they hit the post and it went right along the line?
That was
we did ride our luck a little bit.
Yeah,
one of those kind of great away days under McKenna in that season where we got the goal at the right time, but maybe held on for dear life at times.
That's when all the away games were 1-0 and all the home games were 3-2, weren't they? We didn't concede on the road and we conceded loads at Portman Road.
Yeah, we did ride our luck. Yeah, Nathan Broadhead scored. That's the Bristol City is the one with the really high up camera, so quite a good tactical view of the game. Some people like that. I can't say I'm a huge fan. I like to be a little bit closer to the action. If anyone's going to Bristol City for the first time, you can have Guinness on draft in the away end at Bristol City. You don't get that many places, but yeah, Bristol City of Bristol Rugby also play there, which is probably why Guinness has such a big monopoly in that away end. So yeah, that's Bristol City, Portsmouth, Blackburn, and Sheffield United. I'm going to push you. I'm going to ask how many points you expect, Seb, and how many you think we will get.
How many do I expect?
Actually, that's the same. The same
thing.
How many do you want, and how many do you expect?
I'm thinking 7. I think we'll beat Sheffield United. I think we'll draw at Blackburn. I think we'll beat Portsmouth, but I think we might lose away at Bristol City. So I'll go for 7 and 2 wins out of 4 games compared to what we've had for the past 9 months of the year. Will seem okay. Yeah, I think 2 wins, a draw, and a defeat. Win those 2 home games, and we'll all feel in a really good place, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do see Blackburn as a possible 3 points. So, but I'm so bad at predictions, Mikey, and I always manifest the wrong thing. So I think Seb's logic is sound. At Bristol City away, if you ask me right now, I'd probably suggest that we might lose that one. Long way to go on a Tuesday night. I know we'll probably fly, won't we? But yeah, I know there's a lot of people saying unbeaten month. That would be great. But I think it's the wins, isn't it? And if we get 3 wins out of those and lose against Bristol City, I think that's okay with me.
Yeah, Neil seems to be in confident mood. He's saying 10 points. Horse Hollerer want 12 points, expects 6.
I mean, 8 points.
8 points,
Trevor's,
a good return.
Yeah, 2 points
stay
per game,
unbeaten
isn't it?
for the month is real progression, isn't it, compared to what we've had?
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into some of the questions now. Thank you to everyone who's joined us in the chat tonight. And yeah, if you want to get a question in, we'll try our best to read them out. This one came in a little bit earlier. I'm going to read it because I know Gary's son is home and away. Is Ipswich Town mad? He wants to know, why didn't we just sell Amari for 35 million and then get a new right winger in a little bit quicker? If we could have brought in that right winger a little bit quicker, would it have been worth it just for the sake of £2 or £3 million, Seb?
Well, I guess if you could do a deal earlier, the sake of 2.5 million quid makes very little difference. I guess it was important for the club, however, to be seen not to be a bit of a soft touch. Maybe, after the Delap scenario where it was widely publicised about his release clause and it was done very quickly, etc. I think it was important that the club dug in a little bit to kind of say, well, hang on a minute, we are prepared to let these players leave, but it's going to be on our terms. Brentford got to the number, but the payment options and the trigger, the stages of it didn't meet the necessary requirements. Then Forest come in. So, Casey McAteer was in for the Preston game, wasn't he? So he only missed the first two, Birmingham away and Southampton at home, where Chio Ogbene started both. And I guess if Chio Ogbene is fighting fit, then it's not really that much of an issue. So I think it was important for the club not to show a bit of kind of, not backbone, but to show a bit of toughness and say, we're not going to be bullied on this one. And maybe that is one of those intangibles that you can't really measure.
Rich Michael, one of our new top tier members, asked, with the number of players away on international duty, do you think the break has helped or hindered it? Surely can only have helped, can't it?
Yeah, I was speculating about that last week, actually. And I think off the back of Derby was disappointing. It needed a miracle. McKenna talked about the last minute, Jack Clark scoring his first goal at the North Stand end, all that kind of stuff. You could paint that as a positive that we dug out a point there, but ultimately there were more questions than answers after that game for me. Now, of course, a big chunk of the team have gone off on international duty, but I don't think we expect Agueli to be involved in the first team too quickly. So that's not necessarily a problem. And actually the guys that have gone off to Ireland know their roles, don't they? O'Shea's, Smodic, McAteer, I know McAteer's still getting used to how we play, but I think there's less issue and risk about that for me. So actually, I think Mikey, 2 weeks on the training ground, as Seb said, we know what McKenna's about, developing players, building these partnerships. I think there's enough of the squad left behind. Certainly players that we need to figure this stuff out quickly. The midfield pair, Clark, Philogene, Davis, that left-hand side partnership. So I think there's enough of a good squad to be working hard for the 2 weeks of the international break. So I'm fine with it.
Cool. On to this one from Andrew Benson. Any idea on how the owners have taken relegation, Seb? Are they still 100% on board given the Brett Johnson email debacle?
Well, I guess we're ahead of where they wanted to be in their minds. I'd imagine this was probably, season 3 at championship level, with a real desire to push on this year after a couple of years of building. So we are ahead of the curve. I mean, the value of the club, being a pension fund, they'll be concerned about, obviously, the exit strategy. Their investment has probably gone up X number, 20, 30 times what they paid for the club now. And at the end of the day, they won't be happy with the relegation, but it's clear that the backing they've given to the likes of Ashton and McKenna by spending, we've broken the championship record, 17.5 million for a Norwegian wonder kid who very few people have heard of. That shows the level of backing. They still have complete faith in these guys. Yes, they'll have to deliver. Yes, there'll be pressure on McKenna if they don't, hit the ground running soon. But I think they're probably not happy because we've been relegated, but fully understanding of the situation given the rise that we had over those 2 seasons. They will be aware that we are ahead of the curve where they expected to be, I would think.
Next up, Romeo 4, also a top tier member. Rich, do the panel, so we'll all answer this one, think the signings of both Kiyossi and Nunes will see Kieran McKenna change his rigid 4-2-3-1 formation, an option to maybe play all three?
Yeah, by shoving Nunes into the 10. I know McKenna's kind of talks about more than just numbers and 4-2-3-1s and what have yous. But I think his shape is pretty consistent. What the players are instructed to do might evolve and change, but I'd be shocked if we don't have 2 City midfielders, and therefore I'm quite excited by the idea of Matasiwa, Kayusta, and then Nunez as a kind of a tripod. That worked for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's the way. So, Seb, are you in agreement with Rich that we're not suddenly going to change to 4-3-3?
I think so, because even when we've seen Jack Taylor come on in the past, he tends to play in a more advanced role. So McKenna clearly likes that either number 10 or midfielder kind of pushing on. So there might be times if you're away from home at Southampton and you're trying to hold on to a lead, you might take off an attacking option and put on a player and play them slightly deeper and have Matasiwa just sitting in front of the back four. So I think there'll be times when they are all on the pitch, but if they start a game, I very much do think one of those will be pushed into a more advanced option.
Rob Hughes, Philogene is surely in the team to take his fullback on. Why is he not doing it? Playing to team orders, lacking confidence, or just not capable? Rich, he's definitely capable, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, all the above. Rob's probably got it right there. I mean, there's team orders in respect of his interactions with Davis, which hasn't really settled itself or down or figured itself out just yet. So again, to my point, training ground 2 weeks, that can only help. Confidence, he had a really difficult spell when he went back to Villa. Didn't really get involved, did he? Joined us when we were at our kind of low ebb, got injured. Blimey, just give him a break. I know it's we spent big money. I know that's not a criticism of Rob, by the way. We have high expectations because the money we spent there, but I think Rob's got it spot on. If he's going to be confident, is he 100% happy with his injury? And in terms of capable, teams are sitting in a low block against us. Bloody hell, he's not going to take on five defenders sitting in a low block. Is he on his own? So I think there's a little bit of strategy there that can help him. There's a little bit of being the partnership with Davis that can help him, but his confidence I think that's a big part of it for him. And we've got to be much more patient. I was sat in the I sit in the North Stand. Philogene Blaze went over the bar. He tried to step over a trick that didn't work, lost the ball. And everyone's on his case straight away. We've got to be much more patient with these guys. And that was a bit of the interview with McKenna and Ashton as well, talked to that. We've got a job to do here as a fan base. And again, sorry, this isn't directed at Rob. It's a really great question. It's just allowed me to kind of make a broader point there that, we've got to be, more patient.
Patience is what we need. Michael asks who will play number 10 for us. Do we think Smodics has got the shirt if he isn't injured? Or
if he is injured, Chuba Akpom probably starts against Sheffield United. If he can get himself up and running, then the shirt is his to lose. Had a great season for Middlesbrough in that number 10 role with Cameron Archer pushed further up. So it's his shirt. If Smodic misses out on Friday night, he's got to take the chance. And if he gets it, he adds a bit of physicality, a bit of a different option to Smodic, and he can get himself a run of games.
Here we go, Rich. Paul P. Don't know if it's Paul Potts. How long does McKenna realistically have if he can't turn this around? He's got credit in the bank, but a manager of a football club isn't the most secure profession.
I kind of feel like it is for Kieran McKenna right now. I think obviously we need to see September out, and if we lose all 4 games, there's going to be a lot of pressure, isn't there? Let's be clear about it. So that's worst case scenario here. I still think, and we talked about it with this interview, the fact that McKenna is 65% of the conversation with Matt Holland tells you how integral McKenna is to things. And ultimately, we surely have got enough of a sample size of McKenna's history with us and the struggles that we had to endure when he came in at League One that came good to know that he's got enough nous, enough ability and enough of the right players once they get up to speed with the strategy and style of play and the culture around the football club to think it will come good. So Paul's quite right to ask the question, but I would probably try to dodge that one. I think McKenna's got lots of credit in the bank.
Absolutely. Seb, another difficult one from Glenn. Do you think that new players are more Premier League quality than the ones they're replacing? Probably fair to say yes. On performances, no, but on potential, definitely yes.
Yeah, exactly. So on the data dashboard, yes, they probably are. They add physicality. They're probably technically better. It's those intangibles that I mentioned at the start of the show that are the difficult things to measure. Clearly, you know, we've brought these players in for a reason. We clearly feel if we can win promotion this season, and that is the aim, then we'll be in a better position to attack the Premier League next season, rather than just kind of what we did last year, where we kind of think, right, let's recruit for a Championship All-Star side with a view to the future. So yes, I believe that if we were to go up with most of this squad, then we won't have ticked the physicality box. But I think from that power, that pace, that athleticism, we will be able to compete better, I would suggest, than the side that went up at the start of last season.
Rich, Trevor asked, as now Chaplin has gone, who could play in the 10? Obviously, we've got Smodix, we've got Akpom, potentially Nunes. You've already mentioned. He's mentioned Humphreys or Taylor or Philogene here. Who else do you see potentially playing in that 10 role?
Yeah, Humphreys is a shout. I think if Taylor's got any future at this club, it's as an advanced midfielder. I don't think he's a sitter. I think he's had a decent enough start, actually. A bit of needs must in playing him in that position where he is one of the two sitters, but I honestly don't see it longer term. So I think if he wants to stay playing potentially as a 10, Humphreys obviously did it really successfully for Wickham. So it's a step up. I can't imagine Philogene playing there, if I'm honest, but longer term, we mentioned Akpom. Smodic obviously is his shirt now, isn't it? Let's be honest. So hopefully he's not got too serious injury. I think Nunes can play there, but I think Agueli could play there as well. He could play anywhere, and I think that certainly the middle or right hand side, as in behind the striker. So plenty of choice.
Loads of choices. Shall we leave it there? Thank you to everyone who's got involved. Thanks again, and for all of those excellent questions. It's hopefully been an enjoyable hour for you all. So much football ahead of us now. The international break is almost over. I know these two chaps alongside me are absolutely furious that these international breaks even happen. So they're looking forward to next week. The pre-match show's back on Thursday night. That's probably why. And proper football, as they call it, is back on Friday night. So yeah, loads to look forward to. Thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, goodbye. But Seb, any last words from you or Rich? You don't do Come On You Blues on the Flagship show, do you?
No, we can't curse it. August is done. The transfer window's closed. McKenna and Ashton have given an epic interview. We're all feeling slightly better. Big game on Friday night under the lights. Bring it on.